It's not every day that Dutch politics captures the world's attention, but in the weeks leading up to the election in the Netherlands on Wednesday, the anti-Islam, anti-EU message of populist Geert Wilders had observers far and wide bracing for the results. And though fear of a Brexit-style upset did not come to pass, the outcome does leave much to consider. To help us understand what the results mean for that country and beyond, we welcome, via Skype from Kelowna, British Columbia, Willem Maas, Associate Professor and Chair of the Department of Political Science at York University's Glendon College, and here in our studio, Anna Korteweg, Professor of Sociology at the University of Toronto, and we are delighted to welcome you two both to TVO tonight. Anna, I wonder if you could start by just sort of taking us briefly through the numbers here. Shelton, to that end, here's the seat count after the Dutch election. What do we need to know here?
What you need to know is that the party that was leading prior to the election is still the largest, albeit with 8 fewer seats. That the ultra-right Geert Wilders Party for Freedom won, but won little enough that it seems like a loss. That the
in
Christian
other words, underperformed expectations.
Underperformed expectations, and and we'll say more about that. I'm hoping in a bit. But going through it, the Christian Democrats made a bit of a comeback where they had dropped precipitously in the prior election to now be the third largest party, a position they share with the liberal, I would call them liberal centrists, the Democrats 66, who also gained and now have 19 seats, same as the Christian Democrats. Then we see another 2 people in what I guess becomes 5th place, Socialist Party and the Green Left, which are the 2 most left parties that are relevant currently in the Dutch sphere, where the Socialist Party lost a seat, but the Green Left made a huge gain and is really kind of celebrated as the winner when you look particularly at Dutch media.
Okay, let me get Willem in at this point then. As you look at the results then, Willem, big winners, big losers as far as you're concerned.
Yes, so the biggest loser is the Labour Party. This is their worst showing ever. They had 38 seats, which was not even near where they were in the 1980s, where they were always at 40-something, 50. And now they're at 9. So they're in a bit of an existential crisis. What caused this? That's the biggest loser. The Animal Party went from 2 to 5. I know these are small parties, but in a situation where you're trying to form a government, each extra seat matters.
And in terms of the big winner on the day?
I agree with Anna. It's a Green Left. They went from 4 to 14 seats. Their leader is a charismatic 30-year-old. Everyone agrees he's the biggest winner. But the spectrum is more divided than it's ever been before.
Does that suggest, Anna, to you that there is a decent coalition on the center-left, that it won't be difficult to put a new government together?
No, what we're seeing is the biggest party always gets the first shot at being the next prime minister. So we're looking at the next Rutte, Mark Rutte cabinet. And he has promised that he will not go into coalition with Geert Wilders, which would normally be you would look at 1 and 2 and then add from there. And what that means is that we're looking at a coalition of at a minimum 4 parties, which is very new for the Netherlands. What I am reading suggests that the initial attempt will be a coalition with the small Christian Union, which is 5 seats and which is considered sort of a safe and reliable bet, but it's a very small majority with them. So you would have the winners, the Christian Democrats, the Liberal Democrats, D66, and the Christian Union. The other option is for the Greens to join, but they're warned against doing that in the media now because that's what happened to the Party of Labour, was they went into a coalition with the right and were decimated. So
that
they
is
might
a cautionary tale for the smaller party of any coalition situation.
Absolutely.
Willem, let me read this from Paul Waldy, who wrote in the Globe and Mail about the impact of Mr. Wilders' positions on the campaign. And he had the following to say: Freedom Party leader Geert Wilders has prompted Mr. Rutte, the Prime Minister, and other leaders to sharpen their tone on immigration, with the Prime Minister recently saying that if immigrants don't like it in the Netherlands, they should leave. I think we need to understand this better, because on the one hand, you've got the Prime Minister out there campaigning, saying we don't want any part of that. They're far too xenophobic and racist for us. But on the other hand, the Wilders' influence may have moved the Prime Minister further to the right than he wanted to go. Can you figure all this out for us, please?
Sure. The Prime Minister always has a dual role to play. First, he's the Prime Minister, so he has to be sort of moderate, governing for all. On the other hand, he's also campaigning as a leader of a party. And as a leader of a party, you try to get votes. So in this campaign, not only the VVD, also the CDA, also some of the smaller parties really tacked to the right. Not quite copying, but certainly taking on board some of the less extreme elements of the PVV platform.
So can you say that Wilders then did have an influence beyond what the numbers suggest?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. If you look at the substantive shift that the Christian Democrats have taken, that the VVD have taken, the terms of debate, it's all about integration, immigration, who are we as Dutch, what's Dutch identity, that's all framed by Wilders. He's the agenda setter here.
In which case, Anna, let's better understand what happened to Wilders, because there was a time not too long ago when he was at 25% in the polls and looked like he had a shot to win. And he ends up at 13 in the final tally. What happened?
I don't think we know yet, to be honest. I think one of the things that happened was Erdogan, the Turkish Prime Minister, handing to Rutte on a platter an opportunity to profile himself as strong and tough and against the manipulation by these others. Also our largest Muslim immigrant group is Turkish. So
we should just explain that because Erdogan had cabinet ministers from Turkey
who
come to try to campaign.
Come to try and campaign on behalf of a Turkish referendum that would dramatically expand the powers of the Turkish president, namely Erdogan. And for a number of reasons, the minister's plane was actually denied landing rights at Schiphol Airport.
The Prime Minister wouldn't let them campaign.
Wouldn't let them campaign. And I think that kind of that sort of made Rutte look like he meant what he said, right? Anytime you're a sitting politician, you always run into the trouble of not being seen as not having fulfilled your promises. But here he's like a man of his word, and he's going to protect the Netherlands, and we're not going to let these foreigners campaign on our soil, etc. So that is something. I think the other, Wilders did not campaign very heavily. He did not participate in any of the bigger debates. He only debated Rutte at the very end.
Why?
Who knows why Wilders does what he does? Like he very much wants to deny that the political elite have anything to offer. And I think he gambled on being able to sort of stay outside of that fray. And it ended up, I think, working against him. Because when push comes to shove, as political scientist Casmude would argue, is the three I's of Dutch political debate: immigration, Islam, and integration, for the voters are in ninth place of issue of importance.
Interesting.
The issue they care most about is care, health care, elder care. That's their number one concern.
Which Wilders had less to say on, obviously.
He has a one-page platform, and it does mention care, but it's not as convincing as a party that has actually done a fair bit to build a reputation in that area.
Willem, let me get you on this. You know, there have been comparisons made, obviously, to Donald Trump between Wilders and Trump, particularly their use of Twitter. Yes. I wonder if you could tell us about how well his use, Wilders' use of Twitter, either helped or didn't help him in this past campaign.
Well, so I think Anna is right. Wilders was basically absent for much of the campaign. He did a campaign on a Jeugdjournaal, a youth-oriented news program with 5 other leaders. But aside from that and the one-on-one with Rutte, he didn't participate in anything. Where he gambled was, well, let's try to get people through social media, Twitter. The results, I think, speak for themselves. It didn't work. There was one analysis which said that traditional media were retweeted a lot more than anything else. The PVV did come second in terms of likes and mentions and such, but the Labour Party came third, and look what it did for them.
So do you want to go so far as to say the Netherlands just simply isn't as chauvinistic, xenophobic, nationalistic as America at the moment?
Making such big generalizations is hard.
Yeah.
I would say this is a victory for the moderate middle. If you look at who won and who lost, the extremists on both sides or all sides didn't make the breakthroughs that they were expected to make.
Okay, go ahead, sure.
Yeah, if I can follow up on that, I don't fully agree with you because and in terms of your question, the chauvinism is in relative terms. So given where the Netherlands historically have been, perhaps, although we could argue that as well, I'm mindful that if you add to the PVV the votes for the Forum for Democracy, which is 2 seats, you do end up with 22, right? And that their platform has a lot of similarities with Wilders' platform, right? And the other thing is that I would argue on issues of policy, we might have moved to the middle, but even there, the Green Left's win would kind of put a wrinkle in that argument.
Yep.
In terms of rhetoric and xenophobia, Rutte sounded sometimes more like Wilders, right, than you would. He used the same, the Netherlands is ours, if you don't like it here, you can leave, as you just said. And so I think what has happened is that, particularly what we might think of as the right and the middle, with the exception of Democrat 66, which are very different on this issue, have adopted a certain sort of xenophobia light that then siphons off enough of the voters who might otherwise go for somebody like Wilders.
What's the significance of the 66? Why is it Democratic 66?
They were formed in 1966.
Oh, okay. Good. Willem, tell us this. You know, we obviously in Canada just went through a bit of a debate about whether or not to change our electoral system from first past the post to proportional representation. Netherlands has proportional representation. Explain to us how it works.
The Netherlands is one of 2 countries in the world. The other is Israel, where there's a single constituency for the whole country. And all you need to get elected is the proportion that it would require you to get 1 seat. So there are 150 seats, so you need 2/3 of 1% of the votes to get elected. So these new parties, one was elected with 3 seats, one was elected with 2, the one that was elected with 2 has 1.7, 1.8% of the vote. And that's all. So you get everybody represented, the entire spectrum.
So there's only one riding. The country's not broken up into ridings. So your member of parliament, if I can put it that way, you don't really have one for your particular constituency, right?
Well, the constituency is the entire country. This has been an issue. Parties do try to get people from various parts of the Netherlands. So they'll try to get some from the south, some from the north, some from the east, some from the west. But yeah, the entire country is one constituency. It's very much party-based. The party decides who you're placed. You do, as a voter, get to pick someone on a list. So the ballot is huge. It lists everyone who's running. And you, as a voter, mark a little red dot next to the individual candidate who you like. And sometimes, as has happened in this election, candidates who the parties have placed lower on the list do get elected because people vote for them in particular.
Well, on okay, maybe a silly question here, but I know, for example, if I have, if I have a question about trying to get a passport, I know my member of parliament I can talk to. If I have a question about, something going on at my local hospital, I know my MPP who I can talk to. What do they do in the Netherlands when you have those kinds of issues? You don't have a single MPP who represents your constituency.
No.
So what do you do?
You may identify a member of parliament that works on the issue you care about. So parliamentarians are identified with certain issues. And then it also depends on the level of government, right? So certain things are city matters and you go to your city government. We do have provincial parliament, provinciale staten, but they don't really matter hugely. It's also just a lot smaller. So, and this is what you're used to. Like when I first moved here and people were like, oh, I'm going to call my MP about that. I was like, you're doing what? So it's what you're used to is what you're used to.
What's the population of Holland?
Over 17.3 million, 17.5.
17 million.
Yeah, about half the population of Canada.
Yeah, about half.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But size-wise, you drive from one end to the other in 3 hours. Right? So that gives you, so it's really like as if Southern Ontario is one riding. So that's not so strange when you think about it in those terms, right?
Let's look onward across Europe because, of course, one of the reasons we're interested in this race is, you'll forgive me, not that we're so fascinated by Dutch politics, although we are now, but also what it may portend for the elections coming up in France and Germany. The French President, François Hollande, said that the Netherlands election result is a, quote, clear victory against extremism. Willem, are you prepared to breathe a sigh of relief that the French president is?
It's a victory in the battle. I wouldn't say it's a clear victory, and the war goes on. But people are looking for portents, good portents in light of Brexit, in light of Trump, and this is certainly a good outcome for Europhile, moderate, non-extreme positions. But as Anna said earlier, the tone in the campaign has hardened, and so the Dutch government that is likely to emerge will still be pro-EU, but it will be a let's reform the EU type of government.
Anna, do you believe that Dutch Muslims are breathing a little more of a sigh of relief today?
Nope.
No.
I do not. No. Wilders did win. He won 5 votes. The party that tried to represent Dutch Muslims, Denk, got 3 seats, but if you watched how they were treated in the press, it's a small party. It was started by 2, a Turkish and a Moroccan parliamentarian who left the Party of Labour to form their own small group within Parliament. You can do that. And then they founded the party, and they were treated almost with more virulence in the media than Wilders. For sometimes good reasons, but not always. They had some really important things to say about the contributions made by immigrants to the Netherlands and growth and stability in the Netherlands. And that was very much ignored. And sort of word on the street, people I'm talking to, there's a persistent type of racism that does not get addressed, but it does get sort of fueled by these, if you don't like it here, you can leave. And the fact that we keep calling people 2nd, 3rd generation who are Dutch citizens, immigrants, and then we have the rhetoric, if you don't like it here, you can leave, makes it much harder for people from a Muslim background to make a claim for change.
So their view would be, wait a sec, I'm 3rd generation Dutch. I may have a Muslim name and a Muslim background. I'm 3rd generation Dutch. When you ask me to leave, I'm from here. Where am I supposed to go?
Go, exactly. But there were some really touching op-eds, one by a parliamentarian who used to be in Parliament for Green Left, who is a gay Moroccan guy, Tawfik Dibi, who said that his mom was sort of starting to ask him, what are we gonna do? What is our exit strategy? And then there was a Jewish columnist who kind of responded saying, my people didn't have an exit strategy in the 30s. You might really want to take this seriously. Now, that was prior to the election, but that becomes part of the sentiment that is present in the country.
Indeed. Willem, there is always a tendency to sort of overinterpret these events and say, well, this happened here in the Netherlands, therefore we have a better sense of what will happen in France and Germany. Are you making the connection that this is a harbinger of those 2 elections still to come?
I think, all politics is local. The French elections will run on their own dynamics. The German elections are running on their own dynamics. What happens in Italy is anybody's guess. That said, pro-EU parties, so Green Left is very much pro-EU. They campaigned very much pro-EU. D66, very, very, very much pro-EU, and both of them won. So that can't be seen in any way other than a positive for European integration.
So those who believe in the European project and those who are against the sort of contemptuous disruption of the political system right now, they are breathing a sigh of relief today. Is that fair to say?
I think so, yes.
Anna?
Yeah, yes.
And how should whatever coalition emerges in the Netherlands deal with Wilders and the Freedom Party going forward? We got 30 seconds left on that one. You're smiling. You're smiling because?
It's a real conundrum. It's a real conundrum. I think if you want to address this problem at the root, you don't talk about Wilders, but you start talking really seriously about that persistent discrimination and racism that does actually exist in the Netherlands, but that too many people want to deny.
Understood. Thank you for this. I can't say that we've often discussed Dutch politics on this program, but I'm glad we did tonight because that was very helpful. Willem Maas, York University's Glendon College, we thank you for being on the line for us. Way out in Kelowna, British Columbia. And Anna Korteweg, Sociology Prof, University of Toronto. Great to have you here in the studio.
Thank you very much.
Help TVO create a better world through the power of learning. Visit TVO.org and make a tax-deductible donation today.